Hey everyone, Ivy League Gaming here, and today we're playing Raid Shadow Legends, and we are talking uncommons. We are here on the free-to-play account, and my challenge is epics and uncommons only. So I am forced to use champions I've never used before, so we want to take a minute to point out the people that you should be paying attention to if you're having trouble with progression in your account, and point out some uncommons that are actually really good for end game content. So we're going to go over a little bit of both here today. First, from the Bannerlords, I have Word Bearer. If you're desperate for an increased defense champion, she places the baby version on all allies for 2 turns on a 2-turn cooldown when booked. So she is not so bad there. Her A1 is whatever, decreased accuracy on a single target. But this increased defense is really helpful if you are using people like I Will Be, Zephyr Sniper, Shield Guard, defense-based champions, so I might actually end up needing to use her to help boost their overall defense. That buff is really nice, plus it's helpful in clan boss, so we'll have to see if we can use her, although unfortunately this part of her kit makes her not so useful in clan boss, so this is what I'm going to have to test and see if it's actually worth the difference. Next up, we have Commander. She has a stun on her A1, small chance to land, but it's her A2 that's really nice here. She heals the ally with the lowest HP by 40% of this champion's HP, completely fills the target's turn meter if the ally is fully healed, cannot heal herself though. So she's really great support because there's like no healers and revivers as an uncommon, right? Like there's very, very few part of that pool, and she's one of them, luckily. So she's someone I put aside immediately for this challenge. Hopefully I won't need to use her too often, but having a healer, even if it is just single target, is better than no healer at all. I can't go use an apothecary even, so that's gonna be rough, guys. That's gonna be rough with no apothecary. She might be my stand-in. Next, we're over to the High Elves here with Elfguard. She has a decreased attack on her A1 and a decreased turn meter on her A2. Now, this is really helpful against bosses, especially the Fire Knight. This does book down to a 2-turn cooldown, so it's not too bad. You can try to build her faster, so she goes multiple times more than the boss, and she's great, great for Fire Knight, Spider, and Faction War bosses in particular. So don't overlook her. Everyone always thinks of Armiger, which is great because he has it on his A1, but Armiger does require crit rate, 100% crit rate, which can be hard to do early game. So at the very least, she doesn't have any special requirements besides accuracy, of course, to land her decreased turn meter. So she's a really great champion to make sure you have on your roster of uncommons. Figured next I would go right to Armiger. We just mentioned him. He is a Sacred Order. He has a decreased turn meter by 30% if this attack is critical on his A1. So helpful. And he's defense based, so he's easier to keep alive. He also has an enemy max HP skill. Enemies killed cannot be revived. He is so helpful for some of those really annoying waves in content where you get the people that pop back up with an unkillable passive. So he's really, really helpful there. But it's all about his A1 and a lot of content, honestly. You can use multiple Armigers and just keep decreasing turn meter, but you do need to be able to build him with a 100% crit rate. Don't forget that. So he needs accuracy, he needs crit rate, he needs survivability, and he needs speed, so he can be a little bit hard to build early game, but can be fun to use more mid-game, end-game as well. Here is one of our clan boss specialists, Outlaw Monk. He is also a Sacred Order. He has an extra chance to have an extra turn here. Love it. Love it. 10% chance only. Books up to 25% chance. But I like to put Outlaw Monk in Relentless gear if I'm using a team where I don't need lifesteal, because he just keeps going, and we want him to keep going as much as possible so he can place these 2 poison debuffs on the target for 2 turns, books to a 3-turn cooldown, not so bad, and if you can get the masteries, Master Hexer and Sniper, that can actually help a lot as well. But he is a great poisoner. Even having 2 Outlaw Monks on your clan boss team, if you're doing something like I am, where you're like only using uncommons or only uncommons and something else, can be really helpful. I also want to mention Crusader. They give you him right away, right? And he actually has this ally attack here as well. Super helpful to have that extra ally attack, especially if you have people on your team like Zephyr Sniper with an AoE A1 or a Saurus with all AoEs. Super, super helpful to have this person be able to go And I feel like this helps me take down some of those harder bosses in campaign that I was stuck on a lot. Also helps me in arena. I've been using him a lot in arena. Now this is just a 2-hitter on the A1. Okay for Fire Knight, so not too bad there. But there's actually another one. So ironically, there's Crusader and then there's Sergeant. It has literally the same kits. Am I wrong? Like the exact same kit, right? Attacks one enemy with one random ally. Ally joining the attack uses their default skill. Pretty sure that's exactly what Crusader says. Yes. So I don't know if 3-turn with a 1-turn cooldown. 3-turn, 1-turn cooldown. I don't know if their multipliers are different. That's something I might need to look up if we can. A lot of times they're not listed for the uncommons here, but they all have the exact same skills. So he's literally a clone of Crusader. They put the same champion in the same faction twice. I'm not sure why they did that, but if you accidentally fed your Crusader and you want to grab another ally attack champion, you have a Sergeant lying around, he can do the job as well. Now, Spirit Walker here is someone you probably haven't thought of too much in Barbarians, but she has this AoE increase attack, well, AoE, sorry. She has an all allies buff of increase attack, so that's really helpful if your team has attack-based and you're doing an arena even. And because of the challenge I'm doing, I actually don't have any decreased defense on AoE yet. So if I can't have decreased defense, I might want increased attack, right? The only difference is for my team is it's starting to become very defense heavy. So even though she's great and she has this cleanse of herself, I think she's someone I'm not going to be able to use unless I decide to stick with all attack-based nukers for my arena stuff, because if that ain't doing anything for my defense people like Zephyr Sniper and Shield Guard, so we might have to use that increased defense champion instead, just to give us a little bit of a boost in extra stats, because it's hard to get stats, and that buff could be really helpful. Speaking of Shield Guard, he is one of the best uncommons in this game for sure. He has a decreased speed on his A1. His damage is based on defense, which is really nice, easy to keep alive. He's also AoE and fills this champion's turn meter by 20% on each critical hit. So if he crits on multiple enemies, he gets to go again quite often. This is really helpful. So even though it's only a 2-turn cooldown when booked, not so bad, right? So he actually uses this skill quite a lot, and he comes back around to it quite easily. He also has a passive to remove 1 debuff from this champion each turn. So he has a self-cleanse as a passive, so that's awesome. Really, really great skill. He is super, super wonderful champion as a campaign farmer and for clearing a lot of content in general. Outrider is also a hard-hitting AoE damage dealer. His AoE, his A3, hits very hard. He is definitely one you should keep around for a nuker. Now, why the hell everyone is freaking Spirit that's good, I don't understand. But 90% of the best epics, or 90% of the best uncommons, I swear, are all Spirit, aren't they, guys? But he also has this decreased enemy max HP hard hitter A1, or single target hitter A2, and then a single hitter on the A1 with a decreased defense. So that'll be helpful against bosses, including clan boss, and this is just going to be helpful for wave clearing. So he's someone I plan to build personally. And we have Zephyr Sniper. I love her. She has an AoE on her A1. We always love that. Makes people great candidates for stun sets, daze sets, any sort of control like that is really nice. And of course, just a little bit of support. We need that too. We need that too. She's also defense based. So the fact that she's defense based, again, damage based on defense, can make them hit hard and stay alive. It's a lot more useful than some of these attack based champions. I wanted to mention Hunger as well here. This is an Ogren tribe, force champion, HP based. So the A1 chance to stun is really low, but if the A2 actually grants a shield on all allies equals to 10% of his max HP for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. So it's not massive unless you can build him with crazy stats, of course, but it comes in handy. Like, honestly, I put a shield set on my Zephyr Sniper because it had defense stats, and it was really, really, really helpful. It really was. Don't underestimate the power of a shield set or a shield buff early on, especially for survivability. It's amazing. I love using Skinner as well here, and the Lizardman faction, he has attack one enemy, removes two random buffs from the target. Really, really great champion. And then he has a one. Sorry, yeah, he has a 1. He has a single target hit on his A1 that attacks 3 times, which makes him really helpful for Fire Knight as well. And this A2 actually hits pretty darn hard, especially compared to the A1. I really noticed a big difference when he was hitting Clan Boss with this hit. This is really great for those stupid pesky missions, like taking the shield off one of the Keep Guardians, you know, and stuff like that, where you gotta remove and deal with unkillable buffs for the dragons and campaign, and he comes in handy, trust me. Definitely worth saving if you're doing a free-to-play account with, or you're doing one of these fun challenges for uncommons, or you're just early game and you're desperate for some champions. Saurus is also highly used as a campaign farmer for an uncommon. He has AoE on both his ability. It also makes him a great candidate for a stun set. Again, day set, like I mentioned before, because of all the hits are just going to be AoE, and you can help crowd control as much as possible. So if you don't want to build him for damage and have him as a campaign nuker, consider building him at least for crowd control. And that will help a lot in wave clear, faction wars, etc. But he is capable of being a campaign farmer. He just can be a little bit hard to keep alive and hard to get gear on early game, because keep in mind, low speed, low base stats on these uncommons, it can be a little bit hard if you don't have the gear. So that's why I tend to prefer Shield Guard, because at least he's defense based and can stay alive a lot more and has a little bit more utility in his kit. On to Skinwalkers, we have Satyr. He is great. I used him for beating Faction Wars 21 on the main account, only at level 50 because of his A2. Attacks 4 times at random, decreases the turn meter by 15% if this attack is critical. So that turn meter control is huge and such a help for Faction Wars. That boss is one that does the HP swap, and then you have 12 turns to kill it. He actually goes in there and makes sure that, well, the boss doesn't go as often, so those 12 turns take longer to get to. So definitely think of turn meter control when you're doing some of those faction war bosses that have that 12 turns or they do it again skill, right? Gotta take a look at that. He's also HP based, easy to keep alive, and he has decreased speed on his A1. So he is awesome for Fire Knight here with this 4-hitter and decreased speed. He's a really good champion that I definitely plan to max out on this account. When it comes to the orcs, we have a War Chanter. He's alright, but I think what I like about him is he's HP, but only his A1 is HP based. His A2 is attack based. Go figure. I hate when they do that. Attacks all enemies, 25% chance of placing a 25% decrease attack, and then 25% chance of placing a provoke. And they look like these book up to 40% chance to do that on a 3-turn cooldown. So this is decent chance-wise, percentage-wise for these uncommons. To have a little bit of crowd control plus a decrease attack is really helpful against bosses, especially, but love the provoke, love the crowd control. There's not a lot of it on AoE in the uncommons, so he might be one you have to consider. Demonspawn does not really have that exciting of uncommons, unfortunately. The best they really have is a couple AoEs on their A2s. With Picker has a provoke, but it's a 5-turn cooldown, so honestly, and Pitspawn, same thing, has an AoE with decreased attack. This one at least books down to a 3-turn cooldown. So these are going to be, he's someone you at least got to consider for doing faction wars. This is going to be a hard faction to try to complete with an uncommon only challenge. So I really hope I get like a Magnar and some hard hitters for this faction, or else this is going to be tough because they really lack some decent uncommons. So this is going to be a hard challenge. Skelag here, Undead Horde, another AoE. I'm always mentioning AoEs because those are always potential stun sets or some sort of control for faction wars at the very least, or if you're just looking for a specific skill, like decrease accuracy can be really helpful if you're doing something where you can't build up the resistance but you want to throw some decreased accuracy on those champs. He might come in handy because he does have this book up to 100% chance of placing decreased accuracy on a 3-turn cooldown. The A1 has a 40% chance to freeze as well, which can be great for some crowd control, just a little extra oomph there. So he's actually not too bad for the undead hordes. Now, I love Damphir. I've used her before when they did an uncommon related challenge. She has an A1 that grants an extra turn if the target's killed. Kind of like, you know, Baby Septimus, you have Drake, Horden, Relic Keeper, some other chance to do that as well. At least she has that as an uncommon. And she's actually quite fun. She also has an AoE with a heal. So she has a little bit of built-in lifesteal here, which is really nice based on the damage inflicted. And that's on a 3-turn cooldown, so not too bad there. And then granting an extra turn here allows her to go often on this A1. And the A1 can be a really great cleanup skill if you have her make sure she's not your fastest damage dealer on a team when you're trying to progress, and she could kind of do some cleanup. So I definitely plan to max her out as well. She's one on my list. Now, you all know Sniper. We get her early on. She's one of the first champions we pull from a Mystery Shard, and she has an AoE A2 here with a chance for decreased speed. It's a low chance, but anything can help early on. If you have another champion for that, then maybe don't worry about building any accuracy on her, but just making her do a little bit of damage. She also has a chance to fill her own turn meter with each critical hit. So if you can get some crit on her, she's not a bad champion to use for sake of early game content. I'm not quite sure how long you'd really be able to use her, but this is going to come in handy. At least it hits 2 times as well. So that's not so bad. Not so bad for this faction. There's not a lot of great uncommons, unfortunately, for this faction, so we're going to move on. When it came to the Knight Rev, there's only 3 uncommons, and they're pretty terrible. Herald has an increased crit rate on all allies for 2 turns. That might be helpful early on for sake of boosting people that you're having trouble getting the stats you need. That's on a 2-turn cooldown for 2 turns, so you can make sure that's always up. So you could build like a Knight Rev. If you're doing Knight Rev Faction Wars, you could build your team with less crit rate, so they would always have this buff up and you wouldn't have to worry about it as much. Plus this decreased speed isn't so bad on an A1. They seem to have a lot of those, don't they? But honestly, this faction, it has some terrible uncommons, so that's going to be a tough faction wars unless I get lucky with epics. When it comes to the dwarves, all of their uncommons are single target hitters, nothing exciting, so I don't even know if it's worth mentioning. At least he has a 2-hitter that could be helpful in Fire Knight. Ugh. And he has a 30% chance of stunning if the target is below 50% HP, up to 45% chance, but there is nothing exciting about the dwarf uncommons, unfortunately. So, Well, so we'll end it with Shadowkin. Nothing exciting here either. Both are pretty bleh. And honestly, when it comes to like these people with poison, don't bother getting people with these 2.5% poisons if you can. Try to just get a couple of outlaw monks if you're looking to build a clan boss team with uncommons, because they're just not going to cut it. So you could always slap a toxic set on someone early game if you have like leech or something else in the mix, but these low baby poisons, we don't want it. We really don't want it. So unfortunately, that is all. So there are a lot of great uncommons. There are people like Armiger and Elfguard that you can have multiple of. You can have multiple shield guards, multiple outlaw monks. There's definitely going to have to get creative if you're doing a challenge like I'm doing. I'll show the graphic again here for my free-to-play epic and uncommon only challenge. We got a new champion, can't use her, it is what it is, but I'm going to try to make use of some of these uncommons. And if I forgot any uncommons that you found some interesting use for, please be sure to let me know in the comments below. I'm always happy to hear feedback, and it's so easy to skip some that you might not think of particular use for in a situation like this. So let me know, is there someone that I should be keeping an eye out for that I forgot? And I guess I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.